Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome once again to Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent role-playing game. This week we're going to take a look at a stylistic, top-down dungeon crawler called Soulblight. Developed by My Next Games and published by Movie Games SA, it was released on Steam on March 15th, 2018. Soulblight is one of those RPGs that has character advancement through a system other than the standard leveling and experience method, although I do still consider it an RPG. It has a stylistically consistent setting and art style, roguelike level generation, randomized gear, and a complex combat system that can encourage different approaches to both exploration and combat itself. The game supports a controller, and I very much recommend using one while playing. Story-wise, the game is about finding a world tree within the broken reality around a sanctuary. Each time you progress into the game, things change a bit, and when you die, you return to the same sanctuary to start anew. Most of the storyline, pertaining to some plague or past event, is revealed in fragments throughout play, either from characters you meet, or in the form of punch cards that can be read, as long as you get them back to the sanctuary in one piece. A large part of this game is managing complex interactions between a few character qualities, as well as managing quirks that the main character picks up through the game, called taints. A character has only 4 basic statistics, 2 of which have 2 separate sections each. Attack determines overall attack power both at range and in close, called grip combat. Defense works similarly depending on how much damage can be avoided at both distance and in grip combat. Mobility has only the 1 stat, but it affects how much stamina your actions take, as well as how large a window you have to parry an enemy attack. Finally, synergy governs how well you work overall, and although displayed as a percentage, it scales above and below 100%. In fact, synergy affects and is affected by many of the other mechanics, and should be kept as high as possible. Other types of effects may modify the character's abilities during play. Conditions, both beneficial or harmful, may be gained or inflicted by actions undertaken in the game, and many tick down over time. For instance, eating spoiled food may give food poisoning. Not eating may give a hunger debuff, while doing something in line with your character's taints may grant a positive bonus. Wounds and injuries are also important to manage. During combat, you aren't merely taking hit point damage, but may have injuries inflicted as well. A character can have up to 4 injuries, and for the most part they may only be cured using a particular item, although some of them go away on their own. Some of them even get worse over time, and thus encourage you to make sure that those ones get treated quickly. The more injured a character is, the worse they perform, which means that they're easier to injure, and so it kind of spirals down after a while. Finally, there's the taint system, and this one can be considered the main advancement mechanic. Rather than gaining levels after clearing a certain number of rooms, a character gets to choose from a set of taints. Each taint has a passive effect, and a set of effects that may reduce or increase your overall synergy. For instance, cowardice grants synergy when you stealth kill an enemy or you ignore one, while decreasing synergy if you engage in face-to-face fights. In this manner, a taint not only encourages a certain playstyle, but also increases the effectiveness of the character that adheres to it. It's a bit odd in this way, because if done right, it really does feel just as much as an improvement as leveling up might, but on a smoother scale. The challenge in the game is that as you advance in level, you select more and more of those taints, some of which may synergize better than others. Eventually, balancing everything you've taken can either make for a very efficient character, or a very broken one. Effectively, as the game states, the level selection at the end of each group of rooms functions as a skill tree, with each taint representing the skills that not only it includes, but that lie beyond it. Aside from this, there's also a few equipment slots which may be equipped with gear that may, through raw stats or secondary granted abilities, encourage one sort of playstyle over another. Soulblight has a built-in stealth system, where the character can sneak slowly around and go unnoticed. Enemies do have cones of perception that are clearly displayed, so sneaking up behind an enemy and pressing a button to stealth kill it can be a very effective form of dealing with them, especially when one considers how dangerous the rest of ordinary combat can be. Face-to-face combat is a bit more complex. You don't even draw your weapon until combat is engaged, but once it is, moving, firing, blocking, using skills and the like all take stamina. If you block an attack at just the right time, you can parry it, which can throw your enemy off. Otherwise, you have to decide whether to engage an enemy up close or at range. At range, you'll be swinging, blocking, and dodge dashing quite a bit, while up close you can attempt to grip an enemy and then attack, which can cause more damage to certain enemies as well as bypass their defenses. Some opponents operate better while gripped or in close combat, however, so if they grip you, you can try to shove free at the cost of some stamina. A lot of the combat system is identifying which enemies are best dealt with through different methods, and trying to fight only a few enemies at a time. Getting swarmed can be a nightmare, but Soulblight does have friendly fire, so it's not uncommon to see an enemy with a large swing radius take out a lot of their own allies. Maneuvering crowds of enemies into terrain where this happens more often than not can be a useful tactic. There are a few other subsystems in the game worth mentioning. Stores, in the form of kiosks, seem quite plentiful, but rather than relying solely on a gold piece mechanic, value comes from the objects of treasure that you uncover during the game, and in order to buy something, you feed treasure into the store kiosk until the value equals or exceeds the value of the item that you're trying to get. Be sure you can afford it though, because if you find out halfway through feeding all the gold bars and coins in that you're short, too bad. Another subsystem to look for are the transmutation stations. You can break down objects into crystals, which can then be used to change or improve certain objects that you find. It's a neat system overall that I need to get more playtime in to just go ahead and mess around with to find the true depth of it. Graphically, I have some issues with the game. Not in the art style nor the cohesiveness, as it really does feel very well put together and can be downright beautiful at times. Any one screen has just so much going on with it, and there's so much attention to detail that it's hard to find fault with it. But my main gripe has to do with the overhead, direct top-down view, which combined with certain automatic camera movements made me actually physically dizzy at times while playing the game. I personally find it hard to look at what is otherwise a gorgeous game. But of course, your mileage may vary. The sound design, at least, is quite well done, and I have no complaints at all about the music nor the sound cues. Overall, Soulblight is a challenging game that will take some serious getting used to. The combat system especially can be quite brutal if you haven't learned it yet, but I've found that once I got the hang of it, it got much, much easier. The storyline is a bit bleak from what I can make out of it, and revealed in bits and snippets, but it seems to be worth pursuing. My curiosity is, to say the least, piqued. The advancement system is where this game will shine or not, however. I personally would love to see an advancement system very similar to this in a tabletop game, although maybe not in the same setting. I could easily see a system where characters are rewarded for playing their quirks doing quite well. The mere fact that it had me even attempting to stick to a particular role defined by the character's quirks and taints in an otherwise really hack-and-slash roguelike speaks very well for the system in general. If you're a fan of roguelikes, you can put up with a combat system like this. I do have to recommend it. Although with the qualification, as I said, that both the combat system and the top-down view may not be for everyone, it may be worth a try otherwise. And I will leave it at that. Link will be in the description below. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday, Soulblight. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. If you're feeling particularly generous, I do have a Patreon that goes towards supporting this channel and getting things to review at patreon.com/rpgcrawler. Until next time, take care and goodbye.